Need more coffee.
Welcome to Punchline, Gloucester.com. Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers. I'm Mark Owen, and each week I invite a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's happened in their own individual business and their own individual business sector, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. But before I'd like to start, I'd like to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors, and we couldn't do the show without them. Okay, let's meet the panel. Today we've got Mark Hawthorne, leader of Gloucestershire County Council, and we'll find out on his take on the national elections and also what's happening in Gloucestershire County Council as well. We've got Roger White, Managing Director of White House IT Solutions, and we'll find out all about Roger's business, and hopefully he might give us some cyber security tips as well. We got Oliver Angel, MD of Dex Audio. It's guitar restoration, repairs and modifications based in Bourne Mill in Brimsgrove. Brimsgrove? Anyway, we'll find out about, if I could say that right, we'll find out all about that and also about the new products he is launching. And last not least, my very dear friend, Oli Christie. For Oli Christie, he's no longer from Neon Play fame, but he's just launched his new business advisory, business coaching. We'll find out anyway. Okay, let's see what's making the headlines. Courtesy of the BBC. So, first of all, let me whip up to the top. We got the Times. Prisoners to be freed after 40% of sex sentence. The Daily Telegraph. Violent prisoners will be freed early. The Daily Mail. The Labour accused of scare tactics over full jails. The Financial Times. Sterling surges as GDP data buoys Labour growth agenda. Poor Rishi. Maybe he should have waited. We'll ask Mark. The Eye. Starmer faces mutiny on child benefit from Labour backbenchers. The Guardian. Water bill rises show contempt for customers. The Daily Express. Ban them now. We bought deadly crossbow in 2 minutes. The Metro. May you reign over Spain, says the King. And the Daily Star. There is a resemblance there with Foden, isn't there? Rub paws of Phil Foden cat and bring the 3 lions back. Don't you just love the Daily Star? Yeah. Okay, we're going to start with you today, Mark. Okay, what have you picked out from the papers, please?
So one of the stories that's been going around for about 4 or 5 days that was on the BBC News and in the Eye was about reform fake candidates. I don't know if anyone saw this. So the BBC has debunked that story, which will be a bit of a shock for Reform because I think they spend a lot of time complaining that the BBC shouldn't go around debunking stories. They might be slightly grateful they debunked this one. And this was the picture of Mark Matlock, who looked like he'd been generated by AI. And there was, it is an interesting picture. Now, anyone who actually knows anything about how campaigns work and how the nomination paper process works, or it is harder to fake a nomination than it is just to find someone to stand as a paper candidate. But this is a story that got a lot of traction, and a lot of people got very excited earlier on in the week. But we're glad the BBC has finally debunked the truth around AI candidates. Maybe that's something for future generations and future elections, but certainly not on this one. So that was the first story that caught my eye. The second story that caught my eye, Mark, one that I think you'll appreciate, is the Ford Capri's making a comeback. My goodness. We all remember that, very much an icon of the 80s, I think made famous by the professionals. If you owned a Capri, it was definitely a status symbol of how old you were, as much about what you were trying to say. So Ford are bringing the name back. It is going to be promoted by Eric Cantona as well, which will be really, really exciting. First images, I have to say, it doesn't quite have that 80s sex appeal of the old Ford Capri. And it is electric, so I think they might have the name, but whether it'll have the same appeal, we're going to have to wait and see. Got my third story? I think my third story, if I'm being brutally honest, has got to be the one that was on one of the front pages you just flicked through there, which is the Biden story, which just doesn't seem to be going away. Anyone think that UK politics is a little bit clunky at the moment, just has a look over the pond at what's happening in the States. And I don't know where that story is going to end, but it can't be good for Biden at the moment. Surely in a country with many hundreds of millions of people living, they can come up with two better candidates than the one they're currently presenting to the electorate. But that story is doing damage, and you can't see that ending well for Biden. But we're going to have to wait a couple more weeks before that one plays out. But those are my top 3 picks for this morning, Mark.
Okay, thanks ever so much. My best mate had a Ford Capri, and I swear the steering wheel was slightly over to the left or the right or something. It wasn't straight, was it? Great bonnet as well. And everyone used to roll over his bonnet of his car. He used to get very annoyed because the professionals used to do it. Anyway, thanks ever so much for that, Mark. Let's go over to you, Ollie. I know you're not feeling 100%. You got COVID there. You lovely chap. Thanks ever so much for coming. What have you picked for us today?
Thanks, Mark. The first one is in The Guardian, and it's about the new prisons minister, James Timpson. And I love the fact that Labour have actually hired a guy who's been talking about prisons. He hires ex-prisoners the whole time. And it's a really good salutary tale, I think. Well, A, for politics, I don't know why they don't hire more experts. They feel they just have to hire MPs to do the jobs which they know nothing about, whether it's military or health or whatever it might be. And I think for all employers, we should always make sure that we hire the very, very best people. We always used to have a mantra that a maybe is a no. And I think that's because it's very easy sometimes, you're desperately trying to hire someone. And also I heard something the other day which I really liked, which is that if someone's not a true superstar in the first week of the work, they probably will never be. And I think when you look back at all the people that we've all hired over the years, that's probably true. Actually, the guys and girls who hit the ground running and really impress you will always be the great employees, and the guys who are a bit will probably never be superstar employees. So I really like that. And actually, I think the papers that you showed in the BBC there, I think there's an update to those papers. And last night, President Biden called Zelensky Putin, and then he called Kamala Harris his Vice President Trump. And it just goes to show, and I'm working with a lot of my coaching clients about the importance of health, physical health and mental health. And the fact that we've got the leader of the free world as someone who's clearly, whether it's Parkinson's, dementia, senility, whatever it might be, it is deeply, deeply worrying.
And it's very troubling because it's not just that, it's around 2 years' time. And apparently, if the Russians attack America, it takes 6 minutes to get a rocket over. And he's got like 6 minutes to respond to it, what America would do. I mean, the guy probably couldn't get out of bed, let alone wake him up. Who knows? It's very sad. A great man. And it just goes to show that he's just aged. You know, someone's got to put him to one side, isn't it, really? It's quite frightening. Okay, thanks ever so much. I've got one more, Ollie. Is that the take?
Just 2 this morning, Mark.
Okay, thanks ever so much for that. Okay, Roger, let's go over to you. Roger, what have you picked from us today, mate?
Okay, so I've got a couple of stories from the Times newspaper. I've got one about Starmer taking over and committed to gradual change. Obviously, there's this new broom, lots of promises and so on, but the article is effectively saying that he's committed to gradual change, but in due course. So obviously, we're in the honeymoon period for the Labour government. But obviously the proof of the pudding is going to be in the eating, and it's all about how, you know, not promising actually anything, but promising everything. And the honeymoon period will come to an end, and people are going to be expecting some action. So it'll be interesting to see how that all develops. It's a lot of things, a lot of difficulties, but it's not going to be things that can be fixed overnight, as we know. And the article is effectively about this subject, that obviously there's a lot to do, but the fact that a lot of promises, but actually no promises. So it's a bit of a bizarre situation, really. So that's one particular story that I thought was quite interesting in the dust of the post-election time. And then the other one that I had in the Times was England fan facing high costs to get to the final in Berlin. So obviously, as we know, it's supply and demand. Obviously everybody's trying to get to Berlin for the final for the football on Sunday, and of course all the prices and availability the prices are up. Availability is pretty much gone in terms of getting flights and planes and everything really, which always happens in these big events. But yeah, it's you're going to need to be pretty dedicated, both in terms of cost and ingenuity, to get to that final. And of course, it's going to be a major, historic, could potentially be a major historic event. So understand die-hard people want to be there, wouldn't want to miss it for the world. But the costs, this article is about the high cost, as I say, and poor availability. So to be expected, but yeah, difficult nevertheless.
Okay, thanks ever so much for that, Roger. At the end of the show, I'll ask you all what you think the score is going to be for Sunday. Okay. Thanks ever so much. Oliver, welcome to Punchline Talks. I'm sorry your camera's not working this morning, but don't worry.
That's okay.
Okay, what have you picked from us, mate?
So I've got only got two stories, but they're quite. I mean, the reason why I only picked these two is I could ramble on about these forever. Two closely linked stories. My favourite one being Russia's Parklife Festival relocating to Kazakhstan. A very large, scale festival not on the size of Glastonbury, but sort of on the size of Download and Reading and Leeds. Having the whole event having to up and move to another territory because, of course, people simply won't go or won't have the ability to go. And the festival almost collapsed in 2022. There's a great article in IQ that goes into loads of detail about all the acts that pulled out. Funnily enough, the acts that pulled out, one of which being Placebo, are actually on the set list, on the lineup for this year's festival. And many artists, some artists that I work with, being in talks with the festival and then pulling out because actually they even though it's not in Russia, the sponsors and the money is still all Russian. So you have this very odd moral dilemma linked to that. You're trying to get work, times are tough, this industry is more difficult and competitive than ever. It's a constant fight to stay relevant, stay in the public consciousness. You need to be everywhere all the time, and suddenly an opportunity and a paycheck comes into question when where's the money coming from? Who are the sponsors? Do I want to be affiliated with the sponsors? Do I want to be taking their money? It's very difficult. And then, of course, something close to that being that Barclays suspending their sponsorship with Live Nation for all the 2024 events. That did make national news at one point, where you have, the industry is tougher than ever for the people working behind the scenes, because this whole industry is based on disposable income. My business is based on disposable income, a very large amount of it. Very small amount of musicians have to get stuff repaired as a necessity, as an essential. So when you're already fighting for a smaller pool of money, and the public are more clued up than ever when it comes to where's their money going, who's behind this event. And Barclays are an investment bank, and they've got investments in several companies that you might not want to be supporting yourself. So you may think, well, if I'm paying money to this festival, if I'm buying a ticket, how much of that is going into Barclays' pocket, and how much of that is going to causes that I don't support?
Well, it must be very difficult. It's like any business, really, in our own individual sectors, which we'll come to in a minute. By the way, just because you can't see you guys, hopefully, there we go. There's Oli floating around in space.
My
I should have done that when you were talking. I could have nodded like that. Anyway, okay. Okay, right. Thanks so much for the newspapers reviews. Let's go back over to you, Mark. All right, look, we've known each other quite some time. What a disaster the election was. You must have been sitting there. Were you up all night shaking your head?
I was the agent for Mark Harper, so I think I got home about 7:30 in the morning after asking for a recount at 5 o'clock. So I wasn't very popular when I left. Had to
No,
be
it's very close, wasn't it? What was the final count there?
278. It started off 258, and after a recount, it went 20 votes backwards. So there you go. I earned my crust that night. But it was very, very close. Now, I guess for me, I mean, I wear sort of two hats here. Obviously, I'm a Conservative. I'm also a political nerd on this, and it is probably one of the most fascinating campaigns that I've seen in my entire lifetime. I mean, I thought 97 was seismic in the way it changed the landscape of the political landscape of this country. This was completely off the scale. And I think there's an Andrew Neil quote where he says that the Labour government's majority is an ocean wide and a puddle deep. And the stats around the how close all the seats are now is ridiculous. Like over 40% of the parliamentary seats have the winner had less than 40% of the vote, which means there's around 240 marginal seats to be in play next time round. Now, they say that governments lose the elections. I think, if I'm being brutally honest, from a Conservative point of view, that's exactly what happened. Now, a lot of people will blame Rishi for calling the election too early, and there was a strong argument to say he should have waited until November. Whether that would have changed the outcome, I don't know. But actually, this election was probably lost probably 18 months or 2 years ago. And I think those of us on the doorstep got a reoccurring theme where people were just genuinely unhappy for lots of different reasons, but that all sort of stemmed from that time where Boris was leaving, Liz Truss came in for those 40 days, Rishi took afterwards. As a party, we were pretty much hold below the water at that point. And I think the inevitability of Labour winning was pretty much set in stone. Though what happened was clearly seismic. The one story we don't talk about, putting my political nerd hat back on again, it might have been a catastrophe for the Conservative Party in England. It was also a catastrophe for SNP in Scotland. They lost even more of a percentage of their seats compared to the Conservative Party. So, some pretty fundamentals of UK politics that have been settled over the last 14 years have radically changed overnight. But the one takeaway I would say is, Labour's majority is big, but in 4 years' time, everything to play for, and that would be the most wide open election that we've had in this country probably for 100 years.
Well, I suppose it would make a big difference. I didn't realise. My couple of my friends were saying how big reform the dent was making, but I must admit I didn't think it was going to be that seismic of the votes. Richard here lost by 3,000 because the Reform chap got 7,000, and he was swept away because of that, like lots of other seats as well. Do you think there's still going to be a force in 4 or 5 years' time?
A reform and its many previous incarnations, Brexit Party, UK, UKIP, God, I've forgotten that now, UKIP, have been very good at single moments. And actually, if you look at the total number of votes that Reform got across the country, is about 4 or 5 million votes. That's not dissimilar to what they got back in 2015 under the UKIP brand. The problem is they never have any follow through. And what gives parties longevity is the ability to campaign year on year, not just the big show of the general election, but the locals as well, and getting that ground base of support in there. So I think unless they do that, and Nigel Farage has a tendency of going off and doing other things, and there's a big bit of me thinks that we'll probably see him in the States probably for most of the autumn following the presidential election. They're not good at getting longevity. The other thing, though, I think that has broken, which is generations and generations of party loyalty. I think that party loyalty for Labour broke under Corbyn. It's now broken for the Conservatives. I think what you're likely to see is far more dramatic swings in elections, because that core that parties rely on, and for us and the Conservatives about 30%, the same for Labour, isn't there anymore. People are far more retail in their vote choices. So I just think next time round, 240 marginal seats, 3, maybe 4 parties in play, that could be quite interesting and could be quite messy.
Okay, thanks ever so much for that, Mark. You're a brilliant take on that. I'd love to get you back on another show, Punchline Politics. We have a little bit of a further talk
So
about that
if
as
you're
well.
interested, I've actually had an article published again, Con Home, all about it, but it's more about the nerdy side of how the party works. But if you're interested, there's a great article I've had published today.
Just one point, Mark. I think the big thing for the Conservative Party is who their next leader is, because the current candidates that I personally think look quite weak. And if they don't have a strong leader, Farage will dominate, like him or hate him. He's a phenomenal political animal, and the Tories seem to have got a lot of lightweights. And if they don't get someone who's really strong, it's going to be a long 4 or 5 years.
And one of the things I've argued in this article today, which has actually been argued by a lot of people, is we need to do what Michael Howard did in 2005 and wait for conference, because conference is where you can get new faces emerging. In fact, if you remember, 2005 party conference was where Cameron emerged, and Cameron was a winner and went on to win the 2010 and 2015 elections. If we rush it now, we're going to pick the leader that's arguing about why we've lost and not putting the case forward of how we're going to win.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, thanks ever so much, Mark. Right, let's go to talk about you, Ollie. Look, you've just given up your business. You ran a Neon Play for 14 years. You built it to a very successful company. Was it nearly 100 staff? What was it in the end?
We employed we employed 100 people over the 14 years. No, it's been emotional leaving after 14 years when I literally put all my life savings into starting Neon Play, started it from my kitchen here at home, and grew it up organically, and eventually we sold to Hachette in 2016. But I think for me, when you've done something for such a long period of time, I was thinking, can I make games into my 60s and 70s? And the reality is, no. I'm getting older, and it's a young man's game, really, games. I was just thinking, what could my third career could be? I've done my advertising career, my games career, and the thing I love is helping people and supporting people. And so coaching and consulting is a natural progression for me. So I've been doing coaching courses. I suppose I've been coaching away for the last 30 years through my career as well, and building up my business, marketing and sales knowledge. So I've been working with about 25, 30 clients this year on a variety of things. Some of it's work-life balance, which is often like that. Some of it is business challenges, business growth, staff, marketing, sales, just trying to get that balance of life so you can still run a profitable business, but at the same time have a life, seeing your partner, seeing your kids, because that for me is the most important thing. You should be working to live, not living to work.
Is there a particular sector that you're seeing more and more people coming to you for help?
It's amazing, actually. I don't think I've got one of the same sector. It's everything from architecture to legal to farmers to marketers to gardeners. I mean, it's just a massive spread of people. I mean, we all need help, let's be honest. And everyone has got the similar challenges. I think the big challenge is, are people brave enough to say, you know what, I could do with a little bit of help? And I think those people who do, I just give them massive respect, and I see it as a hallmark of wisdom, not of weakness.
Okay, thanks ever so much for that, Ollie. That's brilliant. And you're in this edition of Punchline as well. Punchline, the annual, with some sound advice as well at the business experts. Thanks ever so much for that, Ollie. Roger, let's go over to you. Look, we've known each other a long time. You look after my IT systems here at Punchline HQ and everything. And during COVID, you saved my bacon and set me up from my office and all my staff. Roger, what's the sort of big issues you're facing or clients are facing at the moment with their IT? And have we all cottoned on to the cybersecurity still, or is that?
No, I think it's a bit like insurance, isn't it? You pay your insurance and you think you don't get anything for it, but then when you make a claim, you realise how important it was. And trying to get customers to adopt, particularly in the SME marketplace, cyber protection measures over and above the standard antivirus type stuff, which is a minimum, is quite difficult. As I say, it's a bit like insurance. People don't want to pay the extra until they have an incident, and then they want to sign up for everything. So can't stress how important it is for businesses to go with extra cybersecurity measures, particularly training for staff, because that's usually the bit that lets the side down. You've only got to open one email with a link, and everything can fall apart. So that's probably the biggest challenge. On the other side, the exciting bit is obviously AI. Everyone talks about AI, and it is exciting. But what does make me chuckle, because I've done this for a long time, is that AI is also used as a marketing badge. So people call programming items that were normal coding type things AI, from marketing point of view. But also, obviously, the genuine AI is very exciting. But it just makes me chuckle that everybody gets on the AI bandwagon when it's not actually AI. In a lot of cases, it's a marketing thing. Get your business up to speed with AI when it's actually coding stuff. And obviously, I've been a developer since the beginning of time. And I remember the green screens before the internet. So I'm showing my age now, Ollie.
So, how is business anyway for White House IT?
Well, obviously, there's always a big demand for IT services. The key with IT services, as with any service business, is making sure you keep your service levels up there as you grow and expand. It's very easy to drop the ball, and it's quite interesting to see how other companies cope with it. But if you're not careful, as you get bigger, you can drop the ball. But the service is obviously absolutely critical. And although being an IT company, you look to obviously automate things as much as possible, people still like the personal touch. With any service business, the personal touch is what I think differentiates us, particularly from maybe our competitors, because people want to speak to somebody when there's something gone wrong, cyber attack, something they can't do. They want to speak to a human being. So it's still very much, as a service business, personal driven.
And I've just got to say, mate, we've worked together a long time, and your guys are absolutely fantastic. I couldn't thank them enough, saving my bacon. Even yesterday, to make sure that this camera, it's a new camera, by the way, that we had it all sussed up. Sam was on the phone. No, Nick was on the phone straight away, did it within 5 minutes. Awesome. Yeah. That's all I can say, Roger.
Great.
Anyway, right, okay. Oliver, great to have you on the show. I'm going to bring up some cameras, see if I can share my screen, because we can't see you. So hopefully other people can look at your wonderful guitars. So
yes, my pretty collection.
tell us about the business, Oliver. How long has it been going? Because I think we first met when I was delivering magazines in Quedgeley. I think in the Space, is it something like that? I can't remember.
Yeah, I've had the business for almost 6 years now. I started the business when I was 19. I went to Space Business Centre because I loved their rolling kind of monthly lease. I had a pool of, I saved up, I think it was just under £10,000 from a job that I was working at for 9 months. Started the business, went to an auction and actually bought a lot of guitars off of the bass player from Mott the Hoople had just passed away, and his estate was selling off all of his kit. So I bought quite a large amount of that kit at auction, and it afforded me, I think it was 5 amplifiers, 9 guitars, and a handful of pedals and accessories. And the shop looked so empty. And then I just worked at doing the repair side of things, sales, selling 1 guitar a month, paid the rent. Rent was really affordable at Space Business Centre. Pre-COVID, running a business was sensible. I could manage it month to month, and I had this rolling tally of this pool of money that I had, and it was how, if I didn't make any money, how long could I keep going? And after a couple of months, another month would be added to the chart, and then another month, and then eventually it became, after about 4 or 5 months, became self-sustaining. So I was able to buy more guitars, and I bought a bigger, or signed the lease on a bigger unit. And then I outgrew that one, got another one, and then outgrew that one very quickly. And then 2.5 years ago, got this unit in Stroud that a friend had spotted. And I just needed a big space, and thankfully it paid off. And the the clientele in Stroud is much more music focused. There are a lot of musicians in Gloucester, but it really is the beating heart of Stroud, which I didn't anticipate how much business that would bring. And you know, I knew from my first month that this was clearly going to work. I think turnover literally increased about, you know, 5 times over in the first month from my best month in Gloucester, just moving to Stroud.
Wow. What would you, I mean, did you have any training before you set up the business? You're only 19, just out of university or
I had
school.
nothing. I had absolutely nothing. I only spent 3 months at university, didn't like it, got a job at Renishaw, I loved the people there. I was hired straight away because I knew how to use a soldering iron. And they needed people that could use a soldering iron straight away. So my background, repairing musical equipment from home, got me the job straight away, which I was very grateful for. So saved up the money from my paychecks from there, and just took the leap of faith and started Dex Audio. But no training, no business background at all. Just really wanted to start a guitar shop because I couldn't get hired anywhere else. No other guitar shops are hiring.
Just very quickly, Oli, because we're running out of time for you, and I'm sure we'll get you back on the show again. But what would you say was your top? What was the one thing that you've really learned from starting your own business?
Um, the um, the importance of a brand, I think is key. The Dex name, I chose on purpose, and people call me Dex. You know,
Yeah.
everyone knows me as Dex, um, and it's the importance of a brand. And for me, it's appealing to the big guys as well as the small guys. You know, I do work for people that just walk through the door and want a restring, and I'm very grateful that I've now got, I think, 7 or 8 platinum selling artists on my books that I do work for. So it's covering everybody and making sure that your brand doesn't exclude anybody, especially in the music industry.
Okay, thanks ever so much for that. Although absolutely fascinating. Okay, guys, look at that. The time has already gone. We got to rush through. We've got to do the pick of the punchlines now. So we're going to go back over to you, Mark. What's the story that we've only got a minute each? Okay, so what's the story that you picked out from Punchline, please, this week?
So the sort I picked up from Punchline this week is the council extends consultation on proposed name change. This is Tewkesbury Borough Council consulting on changing its name. I've got a funny feeling they're going to come to a conclusion that there is no other alternative. And anyone who knows Tewkesbury will know you can't call it North Gloucestershire because some of it's as far south as Gloucester. So I think they're going to struggle to come up with a name change. I'm not quite sure it's going to affect punters on the ground. I do wonder whether or not it's a distraction from delivering call services, but interesting story.
I think personally it's a waste of money, but there you go. I did say that to the
I
chief
was trying to be
executive.
polite.
But they're going down that route. Thank you for that. Ollie, what have you picked out from this week's punchlines, please? The pick of the punch.
It's the new massive indoor paddle centre in the Toys R Us in Gloucester. I love playing paddle. I played in Cheltenham and I've played in Elkston, and I'm about to play in Far Peak near Northleach. It's the fastest growing sport in the world, and to have indoor courts, especially with this shocking weather we've been having the last year, is so important for paddle. And to have 9 courts there, it looks an incredible facility, and that's going to be a hell of a facility for Gloucester and the area. So that's very, very cool, very exciting.
I tell you what, 43,000 square feet. It is absolutely massive. And the couple who are running it are really lovely as well. Put in £1.1 million worth of their own cash into this business as well, and got some serious backers as well. Right, okay, Roger, your time. Thanks for that, Ollie. What have you picked out?
Okay, so I'm going to go for Punchline story about Gloucester City Safe scheme with the students of University Gloucester from the criminology, sociology, a lot of ologies at this time of the day, who've done a report into Gloucester City Safe and how well received it is, and most importantly, what a difference it makes to reduce the crime and disorder for businesses in Gloucestershire, particularly starting with Gloucester. It's coming up for its 10-year anniversary, and I declare I am actually chairman. We supported it with free IT since 2014 when it was started and had no money. So we said, I said, look, we'll do the IT support and get the IT side of things up and running. It's incredible to think that 10 years has gone by. But the report was basically, as we all know, very favourable in the fact that the scheme is well received. You've got the city protection officers out and about in the day, helping businesses with the general shoplifting, and obviously members get a radio. They get access to the online system. So it's a tremendous scheme. Hence, you can't blame me for promoting it. And obviously, the students effectively in their independent report came to that conclusion.
You know, it was a minute, Roger, you had.
It was a minute. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yes, look, I think you've done a fantastic. I didn't realise, of course, I did know that you were part of it and started it, and you've done a fantastic job at that, actually. And we'll make sure when it's the anniversary, we'll come back and we'll have an interview with you about how you did it as well. Thanks ever so much, Roger. Okay, Oliver, we've got 30 seconds. 30 seconds. What are your pick of the punchlines, please?
My pick of the punchline is Attic getting their revamp, the £750,000 going into the Attic nightclub, changed ownership, changed management, reopening very soon as Trilogy. I love venues getting a revamp. Nightlife needs a good boost. You know, there's a lot of doom and gloom surrounding it, as said in your article, but pandemic was the worst time for the nightclub industry. So coming out of COVID, it's only ever going to get better. It can only go up. So I'm pleased to see that money going in.
I think that's one of my pick of the stories this week, because the nighttime economy in Gloucester is pretty dire, and this again is, I think, is another sort of a sort of hurrah for the city in a way, because look at the investment there. You've got the paddleboard, you've got this nightclub, you've got other stuff going on. It's getting exciting. I can see the nighttime economy in around 2 or 3 years, with the students being in there. It could be really fantastic. Anyway, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for this week. I'd just like to thank my fantastic panel. Thanks ever so much for joining us today. Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors. Thank you ever so much for sponsoring. And also, thank you all for watching. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. We'll be back again next week. But in between, remember, it's all in the punchline. Thank you. Bye.